had this realization recently. I was watching this three part documentary on John Lennon, his assassination, and it's called Murder Without Trial. It's on Apple TV. I don't know that I'd recommend it, honestly. I didn't really like the way that it made me feel afterwards or the next day. It felt a little hollow. It felt like it teased some things and didn't really deliver. But it did make me think about my introduction to John Lennon and the Beatles. I'm certainly, not old enough to have experienced the Beatles when they were active, and I don't consider putting backing tracks on an old John Lennon solo demo to be any form of active, whether you want to call it a Beatles song or not. I personally think it's kind of ridiculous. That's another subject matter. But I was not around when the four of them were making music that was meant to be Beatles music. At all. I wasn't even born right when they broke up. So people my age or younger are going to have introductions to the Beatles that are going to be quite different, right? I mean, maybe it's an older sibling, maybe it's a parent that introduced them, maybe they just always heard it. It was like water, or just like in the air when they were kids. For me, I can definitely remember my introduction to John Lennon and the Beatles, which was unfortunately right after he was killed. And I started thinking, my God, well, maybe that's why I'm like into mellower music, or what some people would call depressing. I mean, if your introduction to like rock and roll in some ways, the basis of a lot of stuff I listen to is definitely Beatles influenced, or of that, the British invasion, huge influence on everything. Um, if your introduction to something is through death, I don't know. I never really thought of that before. But when I was 8 years old, John Lennon was killed, and some of the first records that I ever heard were 45s that were bought by my mom, given to us kids, and they were the singles for Woman, which was released maybe a few weeks after he passed away, and then Watching the Wheels, which maybe came a month or two after that. And we had both of them, and I played them a lot, and I loved them. I mean, even at the age of 8, I recognized what a sweet kind of love letter to Yoko Woman was. And Watching the Wheels, I remember really liking too. It was a little bit more of a rock song, and I liked it a lot. And but I was also curious. I remember asking my mom, like, why are people saying he's crazy, for doing what he's doing? And I think she just said, well, he's a very unique man, or not everybody liked him, which is obviously so true if you think about how he died. Who knows? Who knows the story there? The documentary doesn't get any closer, really, to uncovering that. It goes down some crazy conspiracy type stuff, trying to tie together John Hinckley Jr. and Ronald Reagan's attempted assassination with Mark David Chapman and Lennon. Somehow CIA, FBI involvement, maybe because they both had copies of Catcher in the Rye, and I don't know. I was expecting a lot more. I mean, the second episode really teases that, and you think you're going to get more, and then 3 episodes and it's done. But it kind of made me feel empty too. There's something about it I just didn't like, but it did bring back memories though. Like seeing. I don't know if I saw it live. I know I didn't see it live, but like the people that were mourning outside of the Dakota after he was killed, and around the world, that was pretty cool to see that again and remember what a huge, sad, devastating event that was for so many people. But yeah, it also just made me just personally like, wow, it's just so interesting that was my introduction to the Beatles. And it was that way for a while. The other introduction, well, maybe just a year or two later, actually, was the Complete Beatles, which I just searched. I thought for sure there's a soundtrack called The Complete Beatles, but it was a documentary. It came out in 1982, and I learned just doing a little bit of research before I started shooting this video that Paul McCartney actually took it out of circulation, bought up negatives and everything around the time of Anthology. I guess he wanted Anthology to be kind of the word on the Beatles and didn't want that around anymore. But I mean, people are like, there's nothing really controversial about it or anything. It's just he just whatever, didn't want that around. I found a copy streaming. I'm probably gonna watch it at some point again. But it was that, I think I remember I had that on VHS. Yeah, I had that on VHS, the complete Beatles dubbed from TV. So I probably still have that somewhere. And then yeah, I found it. I found it streaming. Anyway, but I also thought there's a soundtrack for that, but it turns out it's called 20 Greatest Hits. So that was, I think, my real introduction to the Beatles. My mom and dad also had the Red album, the 1962 to 66. But I don't remember spinning that or listening to that until a little bit later. But anyway, those are my introductions. As far as actual albums, I bought Sgt. Pepper when I was 15. The White Album I got into more like 17. And I had the Blue Greatest Hits too, right around the same time as I got Sgt. Pepper. I remember thinking, for some reason, all you needed were the compilation albums and Sgt. Pepper, and you were good. Well, White Album and other albums quickly proved me wrong on that, and I eventually got into them a lot more, kind of college age and mid 20s, and exploring their catalog a lot more deeply. But I just wanted to do this quick video, just kind of sharing my unfortunate introduction to the Beatles that I know that I don't always think about it that way, but it was through December 8th, 1980, through John Lennon's unfortunate assassination. Real cheerful kind of video here. But anyway, what a gift their music is, what a gift his music is. I just recently picked up this actual album. I had those singles, and for some reason, I mean, I was so young, I thought that was enough. And then I got into the early Lennon and started to kind of write this stuff off. But it was really cool playing it recently and hearing those songs again. That kind of started it all for me as far as that particular group goes. So that's my Lennon and Beatles story. I'm gonna go play some and try to forget the circumstances that introduced me to the band and to the wonderful artist we call John Lennon.